In order to make this claim work, you'd have to be able to demonstrate, first off, like if we're going to go to Revelation and say that was the last book ever written, then we'd have to toss the Gospel of John, we'd have to toss the majority of Paul's letters, we'd have to toss both of Peter's letters, because those were written after Revelation. Anyway, we actually have Daz on here. He was making some questions in the comments, so welcome up here, Daz. Just so we can get some housekeeping out of the way, you are over 18, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And what's your current faith?
Christian.
Any particular flavor?
Non-denominational.
Non-denominational. All right, cool. So you had a couple of questions. So you had a couple questions that you wanted to throw out in the comments. Why don't you go ahead and ask your first one here?
Well, the question that I have is, well, these are questions, and I'm just looking for some understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Because my wife was brought up in the Mormon faith, and I just want to understand it better. So this isn't a debate. These are questions. And questions because it's contrary to my belief.
Sure.
So I'm not going to sit here and debate. I just want some answers, and it to be respectful, because I don't believe what you believe, but I just want to understand. So with that being said, Deuteronomy first speaks about it, and Revelation, not Revelations, but Revelation speaks about it as well. I provided the verses that says, don't add unto these books. So first, how does LDS get around those two specific books and adding not only the Book of Mormon, but the other books like the Doctrine?
So what we would say here, is that these are specific to just those books in particular, not to the entirety of the Bible. The Bible is not a univocal tome. It is a collection of books. In fact, that's what Bible literally means. It means library. And so if we were to take, for instance, what many people would assert Revelation 22:18 to mean, with, say, Deuteronomy 6:4, if the ancient Hebrews, because it was more than just the tribe of Judah, if the ancient Hebrews were to take Deuteronomy 6 in the same vein and the same interpretation as Revelation 22, we would have nothing but the first 5 books of Moses. There would be no book of Joshua, nothing beyond Deuteronomy, and none of the New Testament either.
But the New Testament is not like the Old Testament. The New Testament is the answer to the Old Testament.
Well, the problem is that the New Testament wasn't compiled as such until the late 4th century. The first time there was the Bible was compiled, in any sense, would have been in the late 4th century. And the 66 book Bible didn't exist until the Middle Ages.
Well, the other problem is the Jews who were the authors don't consider the New Testament the answers. If you want to say, well, we call it anyone who professes Christ, absolutely. But those who rejected him when he walked look at it and go, well, you're adding to our book, and you are heretics. It's the same argument.
Well, that's why we have. Hold on. I'm going to answer that, because that's why Christ gave the analogy or the story of the vine dressers, because the Jews were the chosen people, and God did send His Son.
But that doesn't mean Scripture would ever end.
Absolutely.
Well, again, that's an argument that's a post hoc argument. Anyone can say, well, Christ said this, therefore, that's why this comes in.
1 plus 1 only equals 1.
And the Jews say they've got the 1 plus 3. So who's right? The Jews are the Christians, though. That's what I'm getting at. If 1 plus 1 will always equal 2.
The followers of Christ are right.
Here's hold on, Daz. Because again, in order to make this claim work, you'd have to be able to demonstrate, first off, like if we're going to go to Revelation and say that was the last book ever written, then we'd have to toss the Gospel of John. We'd have to toss the majority of Paul's letters. We'd have to toss both of Peter's letters, because those were written after Revelation.
John wrote John. So
yeah, John wrote John after he wrote Revelation.
But the Gospel of John was 90 AD, Book of Revelation 65. You've got like a 25-year gap.
If we go to the Dead Sea Scrolls, we see the collection of books minus like one or two.
Of the Hebrew Bible, sure.
No, I'm talking about of the.
No. In the Dead Sea Scrolls doesn't really have any New Testament text there.
No, there's no New Testament. No, it doesn't.
No. Where? Okay, so what New Testament? No, Des. What New Testament text is part of the Dead Sea Scrolls?
They found parts of Revelation in it.
Let's look.
Tomb they found.
Let's look.
Yeah, look it up.
Yeah, so I'm actually on my laptop right here.
Quick. So. Hey, Daz, what Bible do you read?
What Bible do I read?
Yeah, do you read do you read the Protestant Bible or the Catholic Bible or the Orthodox Bible?
Well, nobody reads the Catholic.
So as of right now, they have not found any New Testament text in the Qumran caves.
He might be thinking because some of Revelation, John has repeated some of the Tanakh in his Revelation.
So according to the Biblical Archaeology Society, they have not found any New Testament texts in Qumran.
Okay, well, I could be wrong. That's fine.
Yeah, so the Dead Sea Scrolls is pretty much exclusively the Hebrew Bible. So it's just what we would call the Old Testament. So yeah, the first time the at least historically what we would call the New Testament texts were compiled would have been around 385 AD. So the late 4th century. And at that point, they weren't placed in chronological order. They were placed in order of literary style. So Revelation was not the last one written, at least as far as like the available text that we have. They were the first text that was given was Revelation, kind of like what Mosiah was saying here on the panel, is said to have been written around 90 or so, but the oldest available text of John would have been a couple decades after that. So if we were to say that Revelation was meant to be the last book of Scripture, right? But the problem is, Daz, is that if we were to say that Revelation was meant to be the last book of Scripture, we'd have to toss at least half the New Testament.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm asking is specific to, Deuteronomy speaks about it, and so does Revelation, saying that if you're adding into these books, so specifically to adding a complete book.
Well, it doesn't say adding to these books. So what does the text actually say, Daz? So let's go to Deuteronomy 6.
Go back and forth. I sent you the scripture because I looked at
Yeah. No, I understand. So I actually can pull up the scripture here. So let's look at Deuteronomy 6.
Right.
So Deuteronomy 6:4. Yeah. So Deuteronomy 6:4. It says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind." I don't think this is what we're looking at here.
I think it's Deuteronomy 4.
Deuteronomy 4. Okay, yeah, so Deuteronomy 4. There we go. That's what it is. All right, Deuteronomy 4. "You must neither add anything to what I command, nor take away from it, but keep the commandments of your Lord with which I am charging you." Nothing about a book here. This is talking about the commandments that the Lord has given. And
hold on, because that's what I'm asking, because, and I'll give the example of, if you're trying to get sealed in the LDS church, a woman and her children must have a husband. So you're adding.
How do you get that?
So you're divorcing the context from the text here.
I'm asking a literal
Monty,
nowhere in the Bible.
You want me to call a Jewish friend for this?
Yeah. I'll phone a friend here. Go ahead, Jewish Lion.
So, Devarim chapter 6 or chapter 4. That's covenant language. That's saying to the Jewish people, this text and this covenant is specifically for the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. to
Well,
worship
that's
him in
I
this
think we're
way
all-
does not apply to Gentiles.
I believe that's who we're all talking about. Is that same God?
But you're inserting yourself and doing presentism in a text that is not intended for someone like you. How are you halachically Jewish?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so this is specifically talking about the covenant, historical covenant.
This is talking to the
between
Hebrews.
the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. How they are supposed to worship him in that time.
So if you're trying to connect it, and like I said, if we're trying to if basically what you're making is essentially the same argument as the Sadducees did in Jesus' time. The Sadducees looked at Deuteronomy 4:2 and said, yeah, that's it. Any other scripture beyond this is therefore invalid. So they didn't look at Joshua, Judges, Ruth, any of that. And so this is the Sadducean argument, that there's to be no more scripture beyond this. However, if we're looking at it from the Christian lens and then trying to say that, Revelation 22 says the same thing, well, I'm sorry, it doesn't exactly work. Because again, looking at just Revelation 22:18, I warn everybody who hears the words of the prophecy of this book, if anyone adds to them, God will add to that person the plagues described in this book. But conveniently, they leave off verse 19. If anyone takes away the words of the book of this prophecy, God will take away that person's share in the tree of life and the holy city which are described in this book. So these two verses are essentially a double-edged sword, especially from a Protestant perspective. Because one, in order for verse 18 to work, you'd have to make the assertion that, at least from the Protestant 66 books Bible, you'd have to make the claim and somehow demonstrate the claim that John had all of the other 65 books with him on Patmos as he was writing it, and somehow think that it's applying to the entire 66 book canon. However, verse 19 is where another linchpin comes into play, where it says if you take away from this book, if we are to take that interpretation in that same vein with verse 18, meaning that it's applying to the entirety of the Bible, then for at least 1,300 years, there were anywhere between 73 and 81 books that were considered canonized biblical scripture. And by the time the Protestant Reformation occurred, they took away several books in there from what was again considered scripture. So when we look at verse 19, the Protestant reformers and those that adhere to that 66 books would have been basically their warning is that their share in the tree of life in the holy city are taken away. If we are to be consistent.
And can I add something to that, Money, if I may?
Yeah, go ahead.
And when we're reading Deuteronomy, right? When that's do you understand what the word Bible means in Latin? Yes.
I'm sorry. Are you asking a question, or are you?
Do you know what the Latin term for the word Bible means?
No.
So bibliotheca means a collection of books.
It's a library.
Devarim is a specific book found within the Torah. The first 5 books of Moses found within the Tanakh, which the Tanakh, or Hebrew Bible, is an acronym and collective of different texts, much like the Bible. Now, when we are understanding Devarim, it's specifically talking about that book or Deuteronomy. It's not saying all the other books that we're supposed to erase them, that they're deemed useless. Absolutely not.
Before we continue, be sure to get your copy of the Apologetics Study Journal for $21.99 on Amazon. Study deeper, research harder, and stand stronger. Get it today on Amazon and at the link in the description or pinned comment.
We're supposed to look at Devarim or Deuteronomy and say, okay, this is talking about the law. Don't remove anything from the law. As Jews, we don't, and you don't do that. That's a no-no.
Okay, so I would say that I disagree, because in the Old Testament is given how we're supposed to eat. In the New Testament, Christ speaks.
Yeah, it changes the covenant. It changes the everlasting covenant in the New Testament.
Exactly. Thank you. So that's my point,
well,
right?
that's the thing. Again, in the Old Testament, it calls Abraham's covenant everlasting, and yet then Paul changes
which it
it.
is. Because
But Paul changes it.
But,
Paul changes the covenant.
well, no, but Paul doesn't change it.
Yeah, he
Christ
does.
changes
Well, hold on.
it.
Because don't you believe that Christ was the one who gave the covenant originally?
Paul puts it to paper, but Christ answers it. Right? The Bible has red lettering because who's speaking? Christ is speaking.
That's only in your
Christ
printed
talked
copy.
about-
In the original manuscripts, there's no red lettering.
Okay, well, it does refer to Christ speaking. So,
Sure, but to say that it's printed in red lettering isn't exactly accurate, especially if we're looking at the original manuscripts.
Which, by the way, was only done because people are illiterate, but keep going.
Well, I mean, there's still people that are illiterate. So,
That's true. That is true.
I mean, people, say when is WEN.
Right, but here's the thing though, Daz. Again, like, so I want to go back to the explanation though of what we see in Revelation 22, because if we're going to look at what it says there and say that's it, that's all there is, well, one, that's ignoring history, that's divorcing the context here, and you'd have to make the case of something that just historically isn't feasible. Again, if we're going to look at Revelation 22, 18 and 19, one, we'd have to make the case that John had the other 65 books with him if we're going to take just the Protestant canon. And two, from the Protestant perspective, they took away several books, which means in order to make the 66-book canon that makes up the Protestant Bible, they would be under condemnation themselves.
Okay.
Well,
Again, I'm asking questions.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
That goes back again to the same argument. By Deuteronomy 4:2, the Christians have broke that commandment. We can sit and say, well, followers of Christ are right until we're blue in the face, but the Jews look at it and say, no, you're not. He was a heretic, and you added to our sacred book. According to the Jews, they can say they're right until they're blue in the face. Like, at this point, it's a matter of semantics. Who's right, who's wrong, and what do you believe?
Well, I don't think there's semantics. I think there's truth.
Well, and Daz, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
And this is just something for you to ponder. And as a Protestant, I'm assuming you're Protestant, correct?
Yeah.
So who gave the authority to Martin Luther to edify Romans chapter 3:28 and to remove texts to defend his argument of sola fide and sola scriptura?
Well, once again, he's seeing what the Catholic Church is doing and blaspheming the word of
that
God.
wasn't my question. Who gave him authority to insert himself into the text, change it to mean something totally different?
Nobody gave him authority.
Okay,
So wouldn't that go against Revelation 22, like what Christians saying? Don't change the text.
Well, absolutely, and that's why I'm asking specific questions. I'm asking, how does LDS fit into that? How does LDS
So we would take the standard of the ancient Hebrews, meaning that there was continuing scripture afterward. Because again, if we were to take that, then there would be nothing after Deuteronomy. It would be just what the Sadducees would say.
No, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and so we don't see anywhere with it. So Des, because we take each book individually, we don't see the Bible as complete, perfect, or inerrant. Just as people in the first century didn't take it that way. In fact, sola scriptura did not exist in the first century. In fact, sola scriptura didn't exist until the Middle Ages, until the Renaissance, really.
And that's why the Pharisees don't like each other, man. The Sadducees.
Yeah.
There's that. No,
so I mean that's kind of the thing, and so we view the Bible as an authority, but not the first, final, or sole authority, because we actually look at the way that our theology is set up is that we believe that God does not change, and that means then that just as God sent prophets and apostles anciently to receive public revelation and to transmit Scripture, to interpret that Scripture, and to even reinterpret previously revealed Scripture, that doesn't mean that that's all of a sudden going to change. Otherwise, we would have to say, 1, that God changes, 2, that he is the author of confusion, and 3, that he is partial to people throughout history.
Well, I think that he definitely was. When he made the covenant with Abraham, he definitely was.
The problem is that, again, Paul goes against that in 1 Corinthians 14 when he says God is not a respecter of persons.
True, and I agree with that statement.
Okay, so is he a respecter of persons, or isn't he? Because if he's a respecter of persons, that would mean that you're right. If a respecter of persons, a God who is a respecter of persons would give prophets anciently, but not today.
We are children of God. Now, how we play out our walk with the Father,
sure,
is different. Right?
Here's kind of here's a little conundrum here, though. Whose interpretation of the Bible is correct?
Okay, let me ask a question, then you answer, and then come back, because I'm trying to.
All right, yeah. Go ahead, Des. Go ahead.
So, with that being said, and I am in agreement in some of what you're saying, and I am. What I have, I guess, will come wrap around to believing that we're all, okay, I'll just use this, that LDS are all saints. Not everybody's a saint. We all have different callings, right? And there are prophets today.
Paul calls
prophets.
Oh, hold on, Stuart. Hold on.
Right. I'm again, this is for questions and to get understanding. So, I'm not trying to get mocked or anything.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
It's kind of a joke, right? If we're actually having, I think
this has been respectful so far. So yeah, absolutely.
So if by wearing select underwear makes me a saint, right? Nowhere in the Bible does it say that, but that's
not what we believe.
Okay,
so we believe that anyone who is baptized into the church is a saint. It has nothing to do with temple ordinances. It's those who have entered into the covenant of baptism.
But what is the undergarment represent?
So can I make a claim? I'm going to insert real quick. So Daz, you made a claim that there's nowhere in the Bible that talks about holy garments. We see that the high priest of Aaron, which Aaron wore an ephod, which is a holy garment by the priests that the priests are supposed to wear. Right. We also see that Jews are commanded. I'm sure you've seen Jewish people wear these. We wear what's called a tzitzit. Even on the Talit Gadol, or the prayer shawl, there is what's called tzitzit. It's a four-cornered garment with 613 knots that represent the sky and God, as well as the mitzvahs. So that is a commandment directly from God. And in Deuteronomy chapter 6, 4 through, I think, 15, even further, it tells us to wrap the law around our arm and on our head, which is why, as Jews, we are commanded, which is why we are commanded to say a bracha for tefillin, and we wear a tefillin that represents the commandments on our head and wrapped around our arm. So there's plenty of places in Tanakh that talk about holy garments. It's not unique just to LDS doctrine.
Okay,
Even more so before that, when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, they were given skins from the first life that was taken to cover their nakedness and their wickedness. In a simple, pointing them towards the atonement of Christ. Because that's what atonement means. It doesn't mean at one man or whatever. It means a covering. And so those skins that were given to Adam and Eve, their children, such as Noah, later referred to them as Adam's holy garments. And then we also see with Joseph of Egypt, his multicolored coat. My sister is looking up the Hebrew of what those words mean, and there are two words. One of them, no one actually knows what the translation is.
Raise, that wind is oppressive. I'm sorry.
No, because I was like, who is flying right now? Like,
I am flying. Let me say this last thing. But the other word denoted a garment that was worn tight to the skin that had embroidery in it. And that denotes a lot of what our modern garments are. Something that is held tight to the skin that had been embroidered with the markings of the holy priesthood. Those same markings are found carved into the floors of Melchizedek's temple.
I'll even say it's just above that as well. Like,
Right.
our temple garments is a reflection of what we've learned in the temple, and the reason why we hold so true to them is because it's that reflection. It's what we are, what was our before, what we're destined to be right
Okay,
now.
but-
What we're
Yeah,
destined to become.
but we're getting a bit into the weeds here, admittedly. But that's the
Right.
thing. Like the
Right.
concept of the reason why we call ourselves Latter-day Saints is the same reason why the ancient saints called themselves saints. These are people who entered into the covenant of Christ by way of baptism. Those who chose to be baptized and enter into His church. It's the same thing with us.
Last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Last question. Like you were just speaking about, like we're getting out into the weeds, and I appreciate you reeling it back in, because like just because stuff has been done in the past in the Old Testament, such as sacrifice, those are no longer practiced today.
Right, and we don't
And
do them either. So
including, there has been right. Well, that's what I'm saying, and I'm about to say what I'm getting at as well is even in the Mormon theology, you know, if you go back 50 years, if you were a black individual, then you were cursed.
Oh,
And that
here
has
we
since
go.
So now we're getting into the
No,
weeds
no.
again here. So what?
No, but
What
my
is?
point
So
is,
that.
okay,
Well, hold on, Des. I do need to stop you there because that didn't start with Latter-day Saint theology. That actually started with Protestants and Catholics.
That actually came from Southern
You-
Baptist
but-
theology.
Okay.
It was used to justify
really-
the slave trade.
Yeah, I really need to
Okay,
say
but
something about
once
this
again,
because I
that
am a
wasn't
person of
changed
color,
in latter-
and I really
Hold on,
hate
let me
this tactic
speak,
being
please.
used.
Yeah.
It is a
There's
very,
no
very...
tactic.
It is a
There's no
tactic.
tactic.
It's a
It's a
very
question.
ignorant tactic being used to saying that we
That's-
change our theology all of the
Oh.
time. When in reality, what it was that when Latter-day Saints were going down to the South and getting more converts, people from the
Hold on,
South
Des.
who
Hold
were
on.
converted from Southern Baptist ideologies came to the church and decided to put their Southern Baptist ideologies onto us. Joseph Smith literally gave a black man the priesthood. It was always a thing for the LDS church to include black individuals. The curse thing was never supposed to be a thing. I really wish you guys would stop using this tactic.
LDS book?
No.
Was it used
That's
in an
no.
LDS?
Nope.
Really?
Right.
Because we can go on LDS.
If you're talking about the
Gain
skin of
several-
blackness, hold on, Dad.
Again, here we
Wait,
go.
one second. If you're talking about the skin of blackness, that's not about black people. We're really being no, I'm not going to let that slide. They're talking about two of the same ethnic group people, both Native American people who count. Oh, wow.
So he runs. Okay.
Anyways, let
and
me
he,
go.
and he's like he comes up and is like, I don't want to debate, and then throws out some
because
dishonest
you're not going
tactics.
to just say a bunch of stuff
Right.
that is dishonest. The two groups, the Lamanites, were both Native American who were Hebrews descended people. They were both from around the same ethnic ground. To say that one was white and one was black, it's obvious not about race. It's about their actions and who they were as people. The fact that you want to use it against as race is like, how illiterate have we become?
Well,
as a
and
society?
it just shows that, like, honestly, given that statement, he said that his wife was raised Latter-day Saint, and it's possible that she was. The thing is that I highly doubt that's actually the case, because again, like, he came up asking about, like, how can we justify adding things to scripture, and then all of a sudden shifted to the temple garment and then to the race issue. Like, come on.